Yes. Hello, everyone. My respect and gratitude to all the venerable monks and nuns who are joining us for today's special discussion with our beloved Master Bhanteji. Before I give an introduction about Bhanteji, let us pay our respect and homage to the Buddha. So let us recite Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Dear Venerable Sirs and Bhikkhunis, today it is a great joy for all of us to have this special discussion with our guest of honor, Bhanteji. And just a few days ago, Bhanteji celebrated his 95th birthday. And I called him to wish happy birthday. I never thought he would answer my WhatsApp video call. But when I called, he answered the phone and immediately he said, Saranapala. And when he said Saranapala, that brought me great joy. So after wishing him happy birthday, I kindly invited him to be the guest of honor for one of our bi-weekly sutra discussion with the venerable monks and nuns. And Bhanteji was very happy to be part of this, but he normally goes into seclusion during the winter time. It is starting this week. And so Bhanteji cannot stay for our next Monday's sutra discussion. But he said, if you like, we could do a discussion today. And I was very thrilled. And so Bhanteji accepted my kind invitation. And I'm very happy to have him among all of us for this special discussion. And Bhanteji doesn't need a special introduction because he's well known to everyone, to all we monks and nuns know him very well. But just for the understanding of the audience, for your knowledge, I would like to say a few words about Bhanteji. Although we lovingly call him Bhanteji, he is the most venerable Hene Pole Gururatana Naika Mahathero. He was born in 1927 in Sri Lanka and ordained at the age of 12. He attended colleges and universities in Sri Lanka and the USA, culminating in a PhD from the American University. He is the founder and abbot of the Bhavana Society in West Virginia, USA. He is one of the leaders in Buddhism pushing for Bhikkhuni reinstatement and he has personally ordained many women with the full ordination. He has written many best-selling Dhamma books and leads retreats around the world. And Bhante Ji has authored multiple books. Uh, to mention some, The Path of Serenity and Insight, the jhanas in Theravada meditation, Mindfulness in Plain English, which is a masterpiece, 8 Mindful Steps to Happiness, Beyond Mindfulness in Plain English, the 4 Foundations of Mindfulness in Plain English, Meditation on Perception, the Mindfulness in Plain English Journal, Loving Kindness in Plain English, Start Here, Start Now, Buddhist Sutras for Recitation, What, Why, How, the Mindfulness in Plain English Collection, and Bhante Gunaratana, a special teaching on mindfulness. So these are some works that Bhante Ji has published for the greater benefit of the world. And it is such a great honor to have his presence among us. And I'm also very pleased to have our beloved Bhante Bodhi. Normally, Bhante Bodhi has chanting sessions on Mondays, but today he made time to be part of this discussion, and also because maybe Bhante Ji is one of his favorite colleagues, the monks, the teachers, and Bhante Bodhi, it is such a great honor to have you as well. And today we have the Venerable monks and nuns joining from different cities in North America, also from Europe. Let me introduce briefly Bhante Vangsananda joining us from Seattle. Bhante Kusala is from here in Toronto, although he was in Detroit, Michigan. He's residing with us now, and we have Venerable Vadigala Samitaratana. Actually, it's midnight for you, Samitaratana. You're joining us from England, from Oxford University. And we have Bhante Muniputto from Seattle, and then Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa, Canada, and Dhammadinna Mehenin Mahanse joining us from Washington, D.C. Yes? Okay. And Venerable Tathaloka Bhikkhuni is here from California. And Bhante Pevaratan is joining us from Pittsburgh. And Ayya Sobana and other venerables are joining us from Dhammadhari Monastery in California. And Bhante Kamalsiri joining us from Minnesota. And Bhante Sutadhara is joining us from California. And we have Bhante Dhammamsa from Florida, Bhante Sankicha from Detroit, and Bhante Revata from Toronto. So I would like to give you a warm welcome to today's special discussion with Bhante Ji. And also, we are giving this Facebook and YouTube Live for the greater benefit of the people around the world. And I have a humble request from all of you, those who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube Live. Please feel free to share this special edition of this program in your social media timelines in Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you're at. So feel free to share this program for the greater benefit of everyone. So now Bhante Ji, we have some questions for you. I have sent some questions to you this afternoon, and other venerables, maybe after listening to you, they might be asking you some questions. So my first question to you, Venerable Sir, Bhante Ji, you're 95. But your memory is still very sharp. You remember everything. So what is the secret behind this sharp memory? And as monks and nuns, what we should be mindful of to sustain this sharp memory at old age?
Oh, thank you very much. It is little exaggeration. I don't remember everything. I remember some, and now I forget most. And if you, I don't have any secret. I just live just like anybody else. But I spend more time nowadays in meditation, which I have been doing all my life, maybe from 1947. And I live a very simple life. You know, when the mind is full of all kind of problems, troubles, stress, and so forth and so on, when we make life very hard, then it is we tend to forget things. When we simplify our life, we have few things to remember. When we have few things to remember, you can remember them. Yes. if you have too many things, then you tend to forget because there are so many things. That's all I do. Yeah.
Okay, so that's very simple answer. So now I would like to invite Venerable Samitaratra from England. You have some questions, so one or two questions for Bhante Ji. Please feel free to ask the questions.
Thiruvan Saranai, thank you very much, and most honorable Mahasangha. So I'm so honored and pleased to be here with you so much gorgeous, splendid, and fascinating. So, however, since my childhood, that means my early monkhood, I was listening and investigating some kind of discourses of Bhante Gunaratana. So I got some profound views and perspectives in Buddhism in regards to meditation and mindfulness. However, I got a few concerns, as Bhante Sarnapala said. The first one is in brief, as Bhante Gunaratana states, meditation needs a specific time, a suitable place, atmosphere, serious commitment to cut off all other mundane life activities. So from my point of view, it feels a kind of dubious or suspicious in terms of naturalism, because I think that meditation or mindfulness seems to be kind of naturalistic rhythm or universal pattern in understanding human life, understanding the real nature of life. So I feel it is supposed to be realistic and naturalistic, like living in life rather than escaping in life. So what's your notion, or what's your kind of thoughts in this regard, most venerable Naikatero? So it is my first question for you.
Yeah, that also is a good question. You know, if you, of course, what you said, partially true, not totally true. I say partially true because we have to incorporate meditation into our life. In Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Buddha said when we walk, talk, eat, drink, wear robes, and answer the call of nature, and so forth, even talking, not talking, sleeping, and so forth, in all these activities, we must practice mindfulness. That is true. So that is how we incorporate mindfulness into our daily life. However, if you want, that is very general practice. In order to be mindful of all these things all the time, you have to make your mindfulness very clear and perfect. Of course, you cannot make it perfect until you spend more time in that practice. With all these activities that you are engaged in, practicing mindfulness in the way the Buddha explained would be extremely difficult. Especially these days, you have so many things to do. You have computers, you have cell phones, you have, sermons, you have to travel, you have to airplanes and meeting with people, discussing all kind of things, sometimes even politics and economics and so many other things. With all these things, it may not be very easy for anybody to practice mindfulness. If you want to specialize in that, you have to spend some time by yourself. And you have to practice it more seriously. Of course, once you have mastered the practice and mind is so clear, then you can stay like a lotus on the ground in the mud without mixing with people. You have to do the homework first. Without doing homework, you come to the society, you will get lost. So many temptations are there in the society.
Yeah.
And that is a very practical thing. We first have to, Buddha said that if you are sunk in the mud, you cannot get another person sunk in the mud. You have to be on the dry ground to bring the other person out of mud. When you are engaged in a society, the Buddha mentioned in many places that Pavitasa and Dhammuna and Dhammo Sanganikaramas. This Dhamma could be realized, understood very clearly, one for one who tries to live in a sort of quiet life. When you are engaged in activities with society, in families and so forth, even in practicing metta, appagabbo kulesu anandakiddo, Buddha said. We have to be aloof from these activities, at least for some times. So you have to have a Vivekanistam, Viraganistam, Nirodnistam, like that. Buddha said we have to have a Viveka, Kaya Viveka, Chitta Viveka, Upadiveka, and so forth. Without such Viveka, practicing mindfulness seriously to achieve some very serious results, tangible results, would be difficult. Of course, we can practice meditation in any way, in a very loose sense. But in a serious way, if you want to specialize in something, you have to spend more time in that particular subject. And therefore, I say as what you said is true, partially, but not totally true. Okay?
Very much. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Bhantaji. It's a beautiful answer to a wonderful question. And Bhantaji, I have to just let you know, there are so many people watching us, our program on YouTube and Facebook. And this is a kind reminder to our friends who are watching us. Of course, some of you really wanted to be part of this discussion in Zoom platform, but this is specifically for the monks and nuns. So we kindly ask people to watch us on Facebook and YouTube Live. And dear friends, if you have any questions, please write down your questions, make the comments, and after the questions asked by the Venerable Monks and Nuns, I'm going to take your questions. So this is a kind reminder to all our friends who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube Live. I know Bhante Kusala, you raised your hand, but before if your question is regarding what Bhante Ji said, I would let you ask the question. Otherwise, you can hold on and I can ask Bhikkhuni Tata Aloka to ask her questions. Is this
This
regarding?
is related. This is
Okay.
connected.
Okay. Yeah,
Namami
please go ahead.
Sangha. So I did raise my hand. I think I'm not going to lower it throughout the entire discussion. So Venerable Bhante Ji, you mentioned about the temptations and mindfulness. So in your recent discussion, just about 1 month ago, in Clear Mountain Dhamma, you mentioned about paying attention to anything outside is not mindfulness. So anywhere when there is greed, that is where we need to focus on. So based on that, and we are living in this TikTok world and Twitter world, Facebook world. I was teaching that to the Hampasala kids recently, and they wanted to know this as well, that what is, based on this understanding, excuse me, what is your most current definition of mindfulness?
Most, I don't have current definition. I have standard definition.
Okay.
Mindfulness, if you want to define from time to time, that will not be Akalika Dhamma. Akalika Dhamma
Beautiful. Beautiful.
is Dhamma unaffected by time and space. So mindfulness is Akalika Dhamma. What do we mean by that? Is when we speak, when we think, speak and act, we always have to look at the mind to see whether the mind is full of greed, hatred or delusion. Am I biased or impartial? Is this harmful to me or to others, or both? So we have to keep watching the mind to see the mental state that we are in when we engage in something. Keep looking at the mind and keeping looking at the mind all the time, to not to feel guilty, not to compare ourselves with others. Of course, there is a comparison in mindfulness. What is that comparison? That we all have one universal factors. There is no difference between you and me with regard to the practice of mindfulness. It's always the same for every person. It doesn't differ from person to person, time to time. That is the nature of Akalika Dhamma. And therefore, my definition of mindfulness is universal definition. That is looking at the mind all the time, whether we are sitting, standing, walking, lying down, eating, drinking, going forward, coming back, and so forth, wearing robes and so forth. In the Satipatthana Sutta, in every sutta that Buddha talked about mindfulness, that is what he meant. And that meaning is not current meaning. As I said, that is the standard universal meaning.
Thank you so much. This really helps.
That made me very happy. Thank you, Bhanteji.
Okay.
Now, Bhikkhuni Tataloka, you sent us some questions. Please feel free to ask your question from Bhanteji. You have to unmute yourself.
Namo Rathanataya. So this conversation and discussion is really fascinating. Nonetheless, I'll ask the question that I prepared. This is the question that I prepared. Bhante, noting that Bhanteji is offering time for all of us right now, and also going into seclusion soon, how do we best discern what is the right balance between compassionate service for humanity and one's own personal practice and cultivation?
I think that is also a very good question. It reminds me of Venerable Anuruddha and Venerable Bhadya, and what is the other monk? Three monks.
Nandi.
right?
Nandi.
Nandya.
Yeah.
Nandya, Anuruddha, and Bhadya.
Yeah.
These three monks were living together, and one day Buddha met them and asked them whether they were living in friendliness, working in friendliness. Are they living like water and milk? No, yeah, water and milk. So they reported to the Buddha, yes, Venerable Sir, we live a very friendly way, practicing metta. And Venerable Anuruddha was the one who spoke on behalf of everybody. When Buddha says sadhu, 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 12 times. 12 times. Every time they said that they were living in a very friendly way in their thoughts, words, deeds were full of metta, in person or absence of, in private or in public. And he gave the description. After that, Buddha said, your living like this brings happiness to the world. That means when one lives very noble life full of metta, that life brings the not only balance, perfect harmony to the society. And therefore, Buddha always advised us to make our personal development in order to help others in Akankheya Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya. Buddha mentioned that if we practice metta for the sake of your supporters, your departed ones, to the families and so forth, you are serving the world in the most practical spiritual way. I think Bhikkhuni Tathaloka, the balance comes from that kind of practice. You can do it in private or in public, in thoughts, words, and deeds, exactly as Buddha mentioned in Karaniya Metta Sutta. Practice metta in addition to mindfulness.
Yeah. So
Sadhu.
a wonderful answer. I think Tataloka Bhikkhuni, you have more questions, but hold your questions, okay? I said Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa raised his hand. Maybe he's going to ask a question related to what Bhante Ji said just now.
Yes, thank you, Bhante, for coming our discussion. And I see you couple of days of the week with your program, so that I'm very happy that you were able to come to this discussion to feed us with the more Dhamma. I have been listening to you almost every week since 2009. So I'm really interested to listen to you about many subjects. But here I just want to stick to our topic. It is about mindfulness and also related subject. The question I asked is about how we practice mindfulness along with the other important qualities on the Noble Eightfold Path. If I give this explanation to with my question, so you would understand what I exactly am asking. You are explaining beautifully about the relatedness of mindfulness to right effort and right understanding based on suttas like Mahachattarisaka Sutta, and also taking some parts of Mahasatipatthana Sutta like Atapi, Sampajanu, and Satima Vinay Loke. I just want to hear from you that how one can mindfulness with the presence of other important two qualities, because some people still think that mindfulness is alone could be is practice, but we can see that from your explanation and also from the book you wrote for Foundation in Mindfulness, that it is relevant, and one has to take these three major aspects of the noble teaching in order to practice the Dhamma exactly as it is and also bring peace and happiness. Could you please explain the relatedness of mindfulness and right effort and right understanding for peace and happiness? Thank you.
I think if you read Mahasalayatika Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, you get the answer. 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path are called cardinal factors: right understanding, right effort, and right mindfulness. These 3 pivot around all other factors. And mindfulness we cannot practice without other factors. But mindfulness, effort, and understanding work together always. And sometimes people think that they can practice mindfulness and they don't talk about morality. Without morality, you cannot practice mindfulness. And that also is extremely important. And then concentration. Without concentration, you cannot practice mindfulness. That is also very important. Likewise, every step of the Noble Eightfold Path are so connected, so intertwined, connected, and therefore we cannot pick one out of all the Noble Eightfold Path and practice that. All these factors are involved. It is a very much like dependent origination. One cannot exist without the other. They all are connected. That is the very special thing the Buddha is teaching. Other people also can have meditation, can have concentration, but they try to isolate that practice from everything else. In the Buddha's teaching, you cannot isolate one from the other. Everything is connected, linked, and everything exists dependent upon the other. And therefore, my understanding of mindfulness practice is that it is a part of the whole, not individual, independent, some entity existing by itself.
Thank you very much, Bhante. That makes a lot of sense about it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Bhante Mahasananda, for asking that great question from Bhante Ji. Now I would like to invite Venerable Ayya Sobhana to ask her question from Bhante Ji. Ayya Sobhana, unmute yourself.
Yes, Bhante, respects to you, and I hope that my question will not seem too foolish. From the very beginning, I have learned from you how mindfulness and metta goes together, and mindfulness cannot really be fruitful or successful if metta is not also there. More recently, I feel like I'm putting more emphasis on calmness, not only in shamatha type meditation, but in daily life. that for mindfulness to be successful, the attitude of calmness needs to prevail. And I wonder if you have anything to advise about that, to make the stilling of formations be something that can be known in meditation and in life.
Yeah, Sobana, could you repeat the question? Sometimes I miss certain words. I am, I'm getting old. Sometimes I cannot hear well.
Thank you, Bhante. My question is, for mindfulness to be really fruitful, does there also have to be an attitude of calmness, keeping the mind calm in daily life, and also experiencing in shamatha type meditation that calming the formations and mindfulness sort of goes together?
Yes, mindfulness definitely should be combined with metta, loving friendliness. Even in Karaniya Metta Sutta, Buddha said, Etang sating adithya. With this mindfulness, one practice metta. What is that mindfulness? Mindfulness of metta, that means when we practice metta, we feel that we all are one. In the mindfulness practice also we see that we all are one. How? It is very beautiful. We all breathe. That is one binding factor. Since we all breathe, we all are one. And we can practice, and we all have suffering. In that sense, we all are one. That is why iti ajjattangva kaya karanupasivati bahiddhava kaya karanupasivati. We have seen our own suffering, and we can see, and we can inferentially understand the suffering of others. In that sense, not only become mindful, we also practice metta, and there is no room in our mind to make discrimination and think even unwholesome, unfriendly thought of another person, or praising others and disparaging others. Attu kansana paravambhana. We don't have room for that when we practice metta with mindfulness. That's a very beautiful practice. And then calming the mind would become very easy. When we see that nobody is hostile towards us, nor are we hostile towards them, because we all are bound by one universal factors. The one simple denomination of all existing things is that we all are impermanent, that we all have suffering, and that we all want to be free from suffering. And these are universal factors. And therefore, when we understand this, we can accommodate others' shortcomings, and we can forgive them for their shortcomings, and so forth. There are so many ways that we can incorporate mindfulness and metta together. Okay?
Yeah.
I try to make short answers, because if there are more people, more monks and nuns going to participate in this, and not only I'm trying to answer all the questions, but since you ask me questions, I answer. But whoever wants to have a discussion, asking questions from somebody else, I can join them.
Yeah, I can actually we are going to have a very friendly discussion because Bhante Ji, we received these questions from these venerable monks and nuns, and that's why I gave them the priority to ask the questions, and maybe the audience might be asking some questions too. So now I know Bhante Kusala, you also sent me some questions for Bhante Ji. And this is your turn to ask the questions. And maybe later on, I would like to bring Bhante Ji and Bhante Bodhi together in this screen. Maybe both of you could have a discussion on mindfulness too, exchanging ideas. We can listen, we can participate. Before that, Bhante Kusala, you have some questions to ask.
Thank you so much for the second opportunity, Bhante Sannapala. So I was, again, this is about Bhante Ji's recent Dhamma discussion on Clear Mountain Dhamma. In that, Bhante mentions that in any moment you can experience Nibbana. So I was really intrigued by this explanation. And then you came to discuss about lowercase Nibbana and uppercase Nibbana. So, and that you said from lowercase Nibbana, you begin with lowercase Nibbana, and then you finally reach to the uppercase Nibbana with capital N. And in that response, you also quoted Dhammapada, Yato yato sammasati kandhanang udayabhayang labhati piti pamujjang amatantang vijanata. I had to read it from the screen, but it came off of your mind so naturally, which is a wonderful quality you have. And the translation of that also you wrote up, that is, whenever one understands thoroughly the rise and fall of the five aggregates, he will obtain joy and happiness. For those who understand, this is known as deathlessness. So from mindfulness, I think now we are focusing at the ultimate goal. And should I understand this explanation of experiencing Nibbana any moment as not as a final Nibbana, but small experiences of peace, culminating ultimately in final Nibbana, or should I understand it differently?
I think when we understand rising and falling, we can understand to some extent how it would be if there is falling without rising. Anuppadi nirodha. Uppadi nirodha, anuppadi nirodha. Whenever something arises, it passes away without remainder. Ahutva sambhoti hutva pativeti, said in Anupada Sutta, Sutta number 11.111 in Majjhima Nikaya. There Venerable Sariputta saw, and Buddha confirmed, Buddha was eavesdropping the Sariputta's mind. What Sariputta was experiencing, Buddha was experiencing that. And he said, ahutva sambhoti hutva pativeti. Something which was not there, but it comes to existence and then disappears without remainder. However, so long as things are there, rising is there and falling is there. If there is nothing, no thing, then there is nothing to rise, to fall. Whatever rises, that falls. And that is called uppada nirodha. When there is nothing to uppada, to arise, and then has final cessation, it is called anuppada nirodha. In yato yato sammasati kandhanam udayabhyang labati piti pamojjang in that stanza, what we experience temporarily is a sign or is the sort of sample of Nibbana. When you see this sample, we can understand how deep, how profound that is. In Iti Uttaka, Buddha said, there is no earth, no water, no fire, no sun, no light, and this and that. Nothing there. There is nothing to rise because it ceased. Cessation. Now, that is the state that we must realize to see even the Buddha.
Right.
We all say we must see the Buddha and attain Nibbana. That is wrong. We must see Nibbana and see the Buddha. That is what Buddha said to Vakali. Venerable Vakali was very sick. Buddha visited him and Vakali tried to get up. Buddha said, no, sit down, sit down. And then Vakali said, Bhante, I'm very sad and full of grieving. Then Buddha asked Vakali, you have any remorse? He said, no, I have not committed anything offensive. My mind is pure and perfect, clear, clean. But I am very sad that I cannot visit you as before to see you. As you know, Vakali was a very pious person. He became a monk just to be with the Buddha, to see Buddha. And now he could not see the Buddha. And then he said, Vakali, when you see Dhamma, you see me. What is this Dhamma? Now Lokutra Dhamma. Sotapatti, Magga, Phala, and Nibbana. Ninefold of Lokutra Dhamma. When you see ninefold of Lokutra Dhamma, then you see the Buddha. In the Lokutra Dhamma, Nibbana is there. So when you see Nibbana, then you see, Buddha is like this. He is the one who discovered this Lokutra Dhamma. And that is the time we see the Buddha. And therefore, all what we see before that are just mere sample, superficial appearance. And therefore, we must definitely understand that aspect of the Dhamma.
That is absolutely helpful. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante Ji. Now, Bhante Pemaratana, you wanted to ask a question from Bhante Ji. Now it's your turn. Unmute yourself and. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Reverential greetings to all our Sangha members, and it was such a delight to see Bhante Ji here. I think my question is about the most recent trend in scientific studies of meditation. I think thanks to Bhante Ji and many other pioneering Buddhist monks and some other Buddhist teachers, there was a great interest in meditation in the Western countries, particularly in the US. So people were doing a lot of research and scientific studies on brains and to understand the positive impact of meditation. So because of that, meditation became so popular. And of course, mindfulness was separated from the rest of the practice, and it was also promoted. And many people became so-called meditation teachers. And now there are so many meditation teachers and meditation centers. But recently now, the science has changed. Now people are studying more of the negative effects of meditation now. So we can find now new article, new scientific studies on adverse effects on meditation. So they have found that when some people meditate, I don't know what they mean by meditation, but when some people meditate, those meditation can trigger underlying dispositions for mental illness or underlying negative tendencies. So therefore now they are suggesting that meditation may not be for everyone. Meditation may be for some selected one, not for everyone. So I think as maybe as monastic teachers, as maybe meditation teachers, I would like to hear from Bhante Ji. Now this new trend in scientific study on adverse effects on meditation, how we can respond to this. And Bhante, it's coming now new, so maybe we would like to get your advice, Bhante Ji, how we can answer those questions when people.
I think the scientists are very humble. They are wonderful people, humble to admit that they don't know everything. Humble to admit that Buddha knows everything. Because it was the Buddha who said that things are changing at a very high speed. Only now, very recently, I was in touch with particle physicist. That person got a PhD in physics and specialized in particle physics. And then in our discussion, that person said, each impulse occurs at the rate of approximately 150 meters per second. The rate of speed of change is 150 meters per second. That quickly things change. And this is the Buddha's discovery. I think it is better than Einstein's theory of what you call relativity 1 and 2. Because Buddha studies our human life, human mind. And others, the modern physicists, scientists are still trying to figure out how much the capacity our brain has. And Buddha has, this little bee, people say bee, such a tiny little bee, can do various things with 8 neurons. And we have 50 billion neurons in our brain. Buddha has mastered all these 50 billion neurons in our brain. So see the capacity he had in his mind and how much he knows, as he mentioned in the Sinsapa Sutta, what he knew was handful. What he taught was handful. What he did not teach was worldful. Kattaradu Kaimanaladu Kallaladu Ulakalu says in Tamil. In Tamil, Tirukkural says Kattaradu Kaimanaladu Kallaladu Ulakalu. What we know is handful. What we don't know is worldful. And Buddha put it in a better way, that what he taught us is handful. And what he knew that he did not teach us is worldful, because he was the one who has mastered all this. He was able to use all these 50 billion neurons in his brain. That is how he was fully enlightened. And therefore, I'm very happy to hear that there are many modern scientific investigations, and they are coming very positive results to tell the world that I read recently, somebody sent me an article from somebody who works in Oxford University doing some research on the mindfulness meditation. And that person also has confirmed what other scientists have confirmed, that mindfulness practice is one of the most important discoveries in human history. And the full credit must be given to the Buddha for finding out the mindfulness. Vipassi, Sikhi, Vesabu, Kakusanda, Konagama, Kasaba, Gautama, all these 7 Buddhas followed Vipassana path to attain liberation. Before they attain mastered dependent origination, they mastered mindfulness method, which brings us perfect liberation from samsaric suffering.
Bhante, some scientists are now studying negative effect of meditation. Some say that meditation practice can trigger underlying tendencies for psychological disorders. What do you think about this, Bhante?
I think it is perfectly all right for people to come up with different ideas, different views, until they attain full enlightenment. Until Buddha was fully enlightened, therefore, what he taught us is perfect answer. Others, of course, have not come to that level. Therefore, they have to come up with various different type of answers. I'm not surprised, and that's good for them to express their own findings in their own way.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you.
Bhante, I think Bhante Sarnapala had a small issue with something going on. So he requested me to ask, read questions in the chatting box. Bhante Vansanand put this question to Bhante Ji. Let me read the question. This is the question. When one practices breathing meditation, in some point, he does not feel breathing or body and doesn't know the situation where he is, doesn't know what to do. Bhante Ji, please, can you tell me what should do for the right directions?
If we practice mindfulness of breathing, he comes to a stage where he doesn't feel anything. Is it?
Yes. When breathing, when one practices breathing meditation, in some point he does not feel breathing or body and doesn't know the situation where he is.
I recommend if somebody doesn't feel anything and in mindfulness of breathing exercise, the moment the person doesn't feel anything, that moment he must breathe several times very quickly to bring his attention to the breath. Unless somebody has attained the Sanya Vedita Nirodha, he may not have that experience. In the mindfulness of breathing meditation, mind becomes sharper and sharper and sharper, cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and it becomes very, very subtle. You gain concentration. When you gain concentration, gaining concentration doesn't mean that you become like a vegetable or rock, not feeling anything, not seeing anything, not experiencing anything. But that is the state where the mind is sharpest and cleanest, so that in that state of mind, you can see the deepest and subtlest changes taking place in the 5 aggregates. That is why the Buddha says, Sata samahitam chittam yatabhutam pajanati. Concentrated mind sees things exactly as they are. What are the things? Things are the 5 aggregates. the five aggregates are changing so quickly, so fast, that not ordinary person can notice their changes, because they change all together. All the five aggregates change together. They don't take turns. You change, first I change, after that, like that. They don't take turns. They all change together. And this so quick, fast changes of all the five aggregates cannot be noticed without very powerful concentration. So many people think concentration is just like Alara Karmas, Uddhava Ramputta's head, and then thought that they attain Nibbana and so forth. In the Buddha's discoveries, when you gain concentration, mind becomes sharpest and cleanest without any stain and with all these 8 qualities of the 4th jhana and so forth. And then at that state, you can see the subtlest changes in your mind. And that is the moment your greed, hatred, and delusion can completely be wiped out from your mind. And therefore, until such time, if you don't feel anything, then you have to breathe many times very quickly in order to bring attention to the breath.
Yes, Bhante, thank you. Fire alarm went on at our temple, so I had to be silent for our meet myself. So, Bhante ji, I would like to present a question from the YouTube. One of our friends who are watching us on YouTube, and her name is Bhavani, and she's asking this question. Namaste. I have recently started to practice mindfulness in kitchen. While chopping vegetables, suddenly somebody called me. I chopped my finger. What's the mistake in my practice?
It is very obvious. Everybody understands. Very obvious. It is just like, somebody holding the mindfulness in plain English in hand met with an accident. In Argentina, somebody was carrying my mindfulness on plain English in Spanish translation. And he was holding the book on mindfulness in plain English and crossed the road. Where is the practice, mindfulness practice? You can have mindfulness in books. If they don't have it in practice, you get into trouble. So that person's accident is the example. Cutting the finger while cutting vegetable. Good example.
Yeah. Yeah, now we have a question from Bhante Kamalasiri from Minnesota. Bhante Kamalasiri, do you want to present your question?
You can read it. That is enough.
Okay. Okay. This is a question for Bhante Ji and Bhikkhu Bodhi. What is your explanation of Parimukang Sating Upattapetva?
Okay. Well, I like to hear from Bhikkhu Bodhi.
But Bhante, you have to unmute yourself. Did you unmute? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, now we can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I was unmindful. Yeah, I thought I would defer to Bhante Ji since everybody is really gathered here to hear him rather than me.
Okay. My understanding is Parimukang Sating. Parimukha is not spatial Parimukha, space in front of the space. In front means space. People say it is space. So the tip of the nose or nostrils or upper lips or somewhere where the breath touches. My understanding is not where the breath touches, parimukkham means. Parimukha means in the present moment. Everything happens in this moment. Pay attention to the moment. And I think Bhikkhu Bodhi knows when he in his translation of Mula Pariyaya Sutta, the root of all existence, he quoted very beautiful stanza from Jatakatta. That is the what do you call the stanza is I just remember the stanza, I forgot to very quickly. Kalo ghasati bhutani sabbane sahattana yocha kala ghaso diro so bhuta patini pachi. In that stanza, it is said that stanza refers to an arahant. But I think it is not referred to an arahant because we consume the time and time consumes us. Everybody is consumed by the time and everybody consumes the time. And that means time and events go together. And in mindfulness, in what you call parimukkham sati means this very moment something is happening, and while it is happening, we are changing. For instance, my mind is noticing everything, while mind itself is changing. There is no immovable mover. While we are moving, we are changing, mind is changing, the changing mind notices the other changing things. Similarly, while time is consuming us, we consume the time. We all kala kanni. We eat time, time eats us. And we have to see this very nature in our experience. And that is what I mean by parimukkham sating upattapetva.
Yeah, maybe for those who don't know, there's a kind of standard explanation within the Theravada. It starts with the Vibhanga in the Abhidharma Pitaka, and then it's continued in the Visuddhimagga and the Pali commentaries, taking the expression parimukkham sating upatapetva to mean pari has a sense of around and mukha can mean mouth or face. And so they take it literally to mean that one sets up mindfulness at the nostrils or upper lip, where one experiences the breath coming in and out. But I think sometimes I've done some investigation of that expression, and I found that the expression parimukkham sating upatapetva is used in passages in which are not expressly describing the practice of anapanasati, but just the way the Buddha sometimes sits down, crosses his legs, folds his legs into the cross-legged position, straightens his body, and then parimukkham sating upatapetva. It's not saying that he's practicing mindfulness of breathing, but it seems to me now that that is just an idiomatic expression, meaning pretty much simply that one sets up mindfulness. And the parimukkham doesn't really have any special significance. It's just like setting up mindfulness, making or activating mindfulness.
So does it
But
mean...
what I do find with mindfulness of breathing is that when the body and mind become subtle, the mindfulness almost naturally goes to this area around the nostrils or upper lip, even without the deliberate intention to fix it there. But I don't think that is necessarily the necessary meaning of parimukkham.
I always wonder if Parimukhang and Pramukha have any connection. Pramukha is a Sinhala word, which is like giving priority to mindfulness.
No,
Because
pramukha would be in Pali pamukha, which is something which is the chief, foremost, topmost.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question from audience and from Facebook. I'm just trying to get it. Give me a second, please. Okay, this is a question from Sadhajivi Samaneri, who is watching us on Facebook Live. This Samaneri's question is, how to teach mindfulness meditation to the elderly people in old age, to become happy.
Mindfulness for elderly people?
Yeah.
What does she mean?
I mean, the question is not clear, but I assume it's like the all people, and so she wants to make all people happy, and how to do so with mindfulness meditation.
It's like senior assisted living kind of communities.
I see.
Learning mindfulness.
Yeah.
I think that is also a good question. We must try to teach them to be mindful of the nature of our life. We all are changing. Elderly people are concerned about their death. And I think they are in a very good situation to practice mindfulness. We have to teach them so many years they have lived, maybe 80, 90 years, and everything they experienced during that long period of time is now mere dream. They all are gone. All their friends, relatives, and experiences, things they have seen, heard, smelled, touched, and so forth, all are gone. They are always disappearing. Now we have few more years to live, and we have to contemplate very seriously on the impermanence of life. Impermanence of life. Impermanence is such a powerful teaching. In Samyutta Nikaya, there is a discourse called Anicca Sanya Sutta. Anicca Sanya Sutta. Anicca Sanya Sutta, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi knows, he has translated the whole Samyutta Nikaya. Anicca Sanya Sutta has given 10 similes. The last simile is the simile of the sun. That means in autumn, when the trees have shed all their leaves and trees remain without leaves, at that time there are no clouds in the sky. That time sun rises. When the sun rises, sunlight spread everywhere. Similarly, when impermanence, when somebody masters impermanence, that mastery of impermanence is like sunlight. That means whatever the person experienced through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, everywhere the person sees impermanence. Impermanence pervades like sunlight. Everywhere the person sees impermanence. And therefore, elderly people are very good candidate for practicing impermanence everywhere, everything they experience. It has happened in the past, it is happening now. in the remaining few years also they must see impermanence. And that's the way they have to practice mindfulness. Impermanence is one of the key or core heart of mindfulness meditation. Everything is impermanence. And therefore, elderly people are very good candidate for practicing mindfulness of impermanence. Marana Sati. Marana Sati, as Anguttara Nikaya mentioned, remember those 6 monks who Buddha asked whether they practice mindfulness of death? Only one monk said, if I live long enough to take one inhaling and exhaling, that time is enough for me to practice mindfulness of death. That quickly things change. So elderly people are very good persons to practice, learn, and practice mindfulness of death without any fear.
Okay. Yeah, that's a wonderful answer, Banteji. And now I would like to take another question from a friend who is watching us on Facebook Live, Christine Kutkowski. Her question is for you, Banteji. For all those who have meditated all their lives and follow the Buddhist philosophy and now are experiencing dementia of the brain, will their karma help them?
If they are all those practicing meditation
Yeah,
have dementia,
yeah.
I don't think so. All those who are practicing meditation, mindfulness of meditation, those don't have dementia.
Okay.
It is completely wrong. And those who are practicing mindfulness of mindfulness meditation remains more alert, more clear, and it is very unlikely that they can have dementia.
Okay, wonderful. So I can take more questions, but we are coming to an end. But before that, we have 2 hands raised. One by first by Venerable Vadigala Samitaratana from England. Venerable Samitaratana, send your question, please.
Thank you very much, Bante. So there are
Can
just
you speak up, please, if possible? Speak up.
Thank you very much, Bante. So there are just a couple of notions related to previous thoughts presented by Bante Kusala and Bante Pemaratan as well. So the first one about Nibbana, empiricism, and Buddhism. So to my way of thinking, I think Nibbana is here. That means at the moment. So however, there are a pair of perspectives in favor of epistemology and metaphysics. So in terms of epistemology, we can say there is no difference between the Buddha and Dhamma and Buddha or Nibbana, because I say, if I adopt to say the Tisametta Sutta in Sutta Nipada, Ubhomante Vijitwana, Majjemanta Nalipati, Tambrumi Mahapurisoti, so the Sibbani Machaga. So there are 2 extreme ways. So we have to come with the middle path, then absolutely to eliminate the middleness as well at the end of the path. So it's kind of Nibbana. So it's here. So it seems to be a circumstance of practice mindfulness or meditation. So I think conceptually there is no difference between the Buddha and Dhamma, but in terms of metaphysics, we can imagine that there are 2 ways, there are 2 elements as the Buddha and Dhamma. So despite this, the thoughts about brain and consciousness, I think brain is exclusively different from human consciousness. I think the brain is a result of physical entities. That means electron, positron, neutron, etc. in Buddhism, we can say it is a circumstance of Patavi Dhatu, Apo Dhatu, Tejo Dhatu, Vayu Dhatu. But I feel that consciousness is the nature of human feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So it facilitates something different, like self-actualization in life, but it is not part of brain. Brain as a part of human bodily action, physical actions, but mindfulness or consciousness is absolutely different from my point of view. Thank you very much.
I like Bhikkhu Bodhi to answer that question. He talks about Abhidhamma and teach something about consciousness. If you like to answer that question, Bhikkhu Bodhi.
You have to unmute yourself, Bhante Bodhi.
He didn't ask I didn't see that as a question, but he was making a statement, basically that the brain and consciousness are something completely different.
Yeah, yes.
I mean, I'm not in any way an expert on, in fact, I have almost no knowledge of brain science and the relation between the brain and consciousness. But from a Buddhist point of view, what we would say is that, at least in human existence, that the brain is a physical supporting condition for consciousness. So consciousness occurs in dependence on the brain, but the brain pertains to rupa, the rupa khandha, so it's material form. And of course, consciousness is, well, vijnana, consciousness. But the two occur as, probably it would be something of an anya-manya paccaya relationship, a mutuality relationship, where the brain would be functioning as the physical basis or support for consciousness, but consciousness would also have impact on the brain and perhaps changing brain function in certain ways. But this would really be a matter for somebody who has more specialized knowledge of neurology and brain function, and also a knowledge of Buddhism to deal with.
My reaction is that it doesn't matter to us whether where the consciousness is, whether it is physical or metaphysical, but we all know that we have consciousness. That is the important thing. And secondly, we all know when we are conscious, we use it, we call it a name. A certain thing happening to us, and that we can talk about it only by using a name. In the explanation on name and form, mentality and materiality, this falls into the mentality factor. Mentality factor has 5 or 6 rather: Phassa, Vedana, Sanya, Chetana, Manasikara, and consciousness. And without consciousness, none of them can work. And therefore, consciousness is the binding factor of everything in our entire life, this life and samsaric life, existence. Sankhara, what you call avidya, pacha, sankhara, and so forth, independent origination, we can see that. Consciousness is not something that exists, but it arises depending on something else. Eyes and senses and sensory objects, when come together, consciousness arises. It doesn't exist. Consciousness does not exist. In Sati, when Sati said, it is the same consciousness coming from life to life. Buddha reprimanded him and said, you all know, remember that? He said, consciousness is just like when you have fire, when there is a straw fire, we can say straw fire. If there is fire on the house, we call house fire. If there is a gas fire, we say gas fire. If there is a cow dung burning, that's called cow dung fire. Similarly, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, and so forth, it arises depending on factors. It doesn't exist. And therefore, we take consciousness in that sense rather than try to isolate it. Some people say, Vijnana Matra Siddhi, 32 Vijnana Matra Siddhi, Thinsati Visadikarika, Panchati Visadikarika, and so forth, and pure consciousness and so forth. These are different type of metaphysical, what you call epistemological theories, practices, philosophies. Buddha was not interested in those things. Buddha simply said very, very practical things. Practically, consciousness arises and then disappears every moment. You cannot find a storehouse of consciousness, Vijnana Alaya. Some people say Alaya means house, as if consciousness is stored in certain places and open the door and take it something and use it and close the door. Not like that. In the Buddha's way of explaining, consciousness arises momentarily, depending on senses and sensory objects, and that's it. In that sense, I think I feel very comfortable with the Buddha's explanation because I respect the Buddha. That is my teacher.
Yes, Bhante Ji, I would like to take another question from Facebook, who is watching us. He's a young Canadian musician and who has a lot of potential. He has been, sending me messages for a couple of days, and he's really interested in what your work, what you have done. And his question to you is, he said, my question is related to both mindfulness and meditation, especially the dialogue that took place between Elder Subhuti and asked the Buddha, how, Lord, should one who has set out on the Bodhisattva path take his stand? How should he proceed? How should he control the mind? I would like Bhante Ji to comment on the dialogue that took place regarding the perfection of insight. This is a question from a young Canadian musician, Alfras Adam Alnur Mulji. Bhante Ji.
I must confess, I don't know the discussion between Subhuti and the Buddha.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever.
I believe that is from the Diamond Sutra, the Diamond
Right.
Prajnaparamita Sutra. Yeah.
Right. I have not read Diamond Sutra. I have read it a couple of times, but I don't understand all the nitty-gritty details of the sutta. And therefore, I am not qualified to answer that question.
Bhante Bodhi, would you like to say something about that?
I mean, I'm not really that familiar with, I mean, I read the Diamond Sutra a long time ago. It's not so fresh in my mind now.
Okay. Okay, maybe we have to have another discussion on that, on the Diamond Sutra someday. And I would I know we have come to the end of our discussion, like 7:30 now. But before we end, I know Bhikkhuni Tathaloka is very eager to ask another question. And Bhikkhuni Tathaloka, this is the last question. Oh, where is she?
Thank you very much, Bhante. Actually, I wanted to mention something in response to what Bhante Ji said earlier about mindfulness and dementia. Really, it's like a follow-up clarifying question. Because we saw with one of our teachers, Samdep Pramahagosananda, later in his life, I don't know if our Bante from Cambodia may have also been with him at that time as the Upatak and seen this, but he lost his short-term and long-term memory almost completely. However, his mindfulness and metta became extremely strong, seemingly unbroken, as if the superpower mindfulness and metta were like melded together and just like continuously radiating internally and externally equally. However, when we told him, go up the hill and turn right, the toilet is to the left, he took one step and he didn't remember that anymore. And then his personal assistant monk, his upatak, said, yes, Bante, he's dementia, his short-term, long-term memory is gone, but his presence in relationship and present moment mindfulness and awareness and metta was absolutely like unbrokenly superpower radiant. So what does Banteji think about that? How do you understand that? That was my experience. I was with him at that time, as well as earlier in his life when he didn't have any dementia.
I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question because I was not with him and I did not experience what you experienced. And therefore, from I cannot give a very hit and run kind of answer, hit and miss kind of answer. I'm sorry, I cannot answer that question. I think, as you all know, we have to close the session. I told Bhante Saranapala that after, normally every day after 5 o'clock, I don't undertake any commitment because my performance is not good at that time. My performance is good in the morning time. In the evening, I'm very poor in presentation of anything.
Bhante ji, it was an amazing discussion we had with you. We all monks are so grateful to you. And at this moment, I would like to kindly request all the venerable monks and nuns to have your video on so that Bhante ji could see you, your face, all the venerable monks and nuns. If you don't mind, please have your videos on for Bhante ji to see you. And so now we have our teacher Bhante Mudita is also here. I didn't see him now. So it's so wonderful to see all of you.
Where is Bhante Mudita?
Yes.
Here. I see.
So today it was such a fruitful and productive discussion we had. And I know, Bhante ji, there are so many questions and asked by our friends who are watching us on Facebook and YouTube live. But we need to have another session with you after your seclusion. I see you're going into a 3-month seclusion, and when you come out from it, I will be calling you Bhante ji to make the time. This is a bi-weekly sutra discussion we are having. In fact, our bi-weekly next sutra discussion is falling next Monday. But since Bhante ji is going to seclusion on December 17th, we had this.
No, December 15th.
Or December 15th.
Day after tomorrow.
Yeah, day after tomorrow. And that's why we had this extra discussion today. And our friends, lay people from different cities, different countries, they are greatly appreciating our presence here. And this is the, as Buddha says, Sukha Sanghasa Samagi. The unity among the monks and nuns is a great joy, a great happiness. And this, thanks to modern technology, it made us possible during this difficult time to bring all the monks and nuns from different cities, different countries to one platform to discuss the beautiful Dhamma taught by the Buddha. So today, Bhante ji, beautifully answered all the questions. And of course, Bhante Ji, you had done a yeoman service to the Buddha Sasana in the world for many decades. And you are our inspiration, our motivation, and you're the role model. And the one beautiful thing about you, Bhante Ji, is that you remember all of us by name. When we call you, you say our name. It makes us very happy to see a most senior monk like yourself, a prominent monk like yourself, recognizing us by our name. It gives us more joy and happiness and encouragement to continue with our Dhamma services in the Western world. So today, Bhante Ji, we are wishing you nothing but the good health. You are 95.
Thank you.
We want you to be there for us more with good health so that we can learn much more from you. May you have all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha for good health and all physical and mental well-being. May Deva, celestial beings, continue to be with continue giving you the divine blessings for health and safety, and may all blessings be with you. And also, I'm very grateful to have Bhante Bodhi for today's discussion. I did not expect you, Venerable Sir, because you have the chanting, but you made sure to be part of this discussion since Bhante Ji is coming. And we are truly grateful to you, Bhante Bodhi, as well as to all the venerable monks and nuns who joined us today. So now, to conclude our discussion, I would like to kindly invite Bhante Premaratana from Pittsburgh to recite the Ovada Patimokkha Desana.
Sambha papasansa akarenang kusalassa upasampada Sachitanta pariyodapanang etang buddhana sasanang Khanti paramang tapo titikha nibbanang paramang vadanti buddha nahi pabbajito parupagati samano hoti parang vihetayanto anupavado anupagato Patimokkhe sangvaro mattang nyuta cha bhattasmin pantang cha sayanasanang adhichitte cha ayogo etang buddhana sasanang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Bhante Premaratana, for beautifully reciting the Ovada Patimokkha verses from the Dhammapada. And as our Bhante Ji was very happy and he loudly said sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And it was, in fact, very excellent, a very great job we all have done today. And once again, I'm very grateful to Bhante Ji and to all the venerable monks and nuns who joined today's discussion. And as I said, today we just had extra discussion with, unique discussion, special discussion with Bhante Ji. But our next bi-weekly sutra discussion is falling next Monday. And Bhikkhuni Tataloka would like to have the discussion regarding the women in Buddhism or Bhikkhuni ordination or something like that. We will be sending out an email with all the details. So I'm hoping to see all of you next Monday around the same time for another marvelous discussion. Until then, all of you have all the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Blessings of the Devas for your health and safety. May you continue be blessed with all happiness. And thank you so much. Good night.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Anumodha. Vandamyang Bhante.